obviously coming off of a bye week, it's a little bit different, and not one of those guys that loves bye weeks in some ways because it kind of just messes with the routine. But there are some benefits to bye weeks, and it's not getting healthy and when you're 3 weeks into a season. But there is a bit of relaxation that when you don't have an actual game to play on Saturday, the Monday through Friday of that week, you sleep a little bit better. You get some much needed, I guess, mental rest for the real prep of a game for us coaches and players. So that was what was nice to come out yesterday and get a little practice in where guys had had a little bit of time off. But nonetheless, now getting back into a routine of obviously a big week is kind of where we are right now. And I'm sure you'll ask about injuries and things like that on bye weeks. It's not like everything just completely goes away and heals up. But I think more than anything, the freshness to your mind and the things that you get a chance to do, not having a game during that week is really good. But we're excited to get back into routine and obviously into a really big one this week.
You have never been a head coach against one of your former coordinators before? Right?
Yeah, I guess I've only been a head coach for 5 years, so it probably doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, there's still first for everything. What's the thought process on him knowing as much as he knows about here?
I mean, the unique thing is I'm sure that it's not been something for the last 2 months that they've been completely working on, having Florida State, Wisconsin, Purdue, and all that other stuff. But I think there obviously will be some familiarity on both sides of the ball from things that we do and things that they'll do defensively, just by the nature of being around guys for a really, really long time. So, but like anything, there's always changes. I mean, Mike Tressel had brought things into us that might not be natural or normal to people watching unless you're actually breaking things down. And I'm sure watching their defense a bit, there's a lot of things that are different as they've kind of evolved in 1 year. So the familiarities, I think you have some ideas of that, but once the ball's kicked off, I think a lot of those things go out the window, and it has a lot to do with obviously the preparation and making adjustments.
Do they look much different on tape from week 1 to going into week 5?
I think you do. I mean, I think offensively they do too. I think that just what they were maybe last year a little bit more with Ian Book is a little bit different. Defensively, I do see them continue to evolve, doing a little bit more each and every week, probably based on their package for what they've got. And that's obviously kind of natural as you kind of get into a season, but especially in your first year, obviously with a new defense.
Have you had anything comparable? Obviously, you haven't had a coordinator, but have you had a former player or someone that you coached with a long time? You've gone against Mike Tressel.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you got a lot of people that you've known for a long time, whether you've worked with them, whether you were GA with them. I mean, I think that's the nature of the business. All of us, not that I've been a lot of different places, but by nature, there's a lot more coaches that have had really good buddies and friends and guys they've worked with for a really long time that they've played against. And whether they really know them well or not, or how long they were with them, there's obviously you don't know everything that's going on and how they prepare and what they might change and adapt to. So obviously it's something for me. It's something for Mike Denbrock too, to go against a bunch of guys that obviously in a place that he spent a lot of time as well. So I think there's kind of those little storylines within every game. Obviously this one being a little bit different and unique because it is Notre Dame.
It matters to the fans. Do those storylines, those connections matter to you guys, matter to the players?
No, I think they're just things that unfortunately take up some of your time during the week. But as coaches, and for me in particular, you try to say, okay, what's going to really matter to the 18 to 22-year-olds? We went through this 2 weeks ago when we went, got the announcement into the Big 12, and all these crazy, exciting things are happening for our program, for our university, for our athletic department, and for the fans. When in reality, for the 18 to 22-year-olds, the here and the now, there's not a whole lot of things that it's going to be different for. And so compartmentalizing those things are unique. We went through them a couple weeks ago. We'll go through them again this week.
It has to be a little different. Marcus, Mike recruited a lot of these guys, though. So, I mean, maybe Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock doesn't matter because that's a few years ago.
Well, yeah, I think individually each, even guys, they have relationships. I think it's maybe not harder, but different on kids because they haven't gone through it nearly as much. That 19-year-old that maybe did have a great relationship with Coach Freeman that was recruited by him. But like I said, those are things people talk, but once the ball's kicked off, I mean, all those things you don't think about until, maybe 0-0 when the thing's all said and done, and but again, things that can distract us all from what it is we got to do.
What did you think of them? I mean, I assume you watched the Wisconsin game. Your impressions of that game and what you saw.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it several times, but
Sure.
no, they're a really good football. I think the unique thing that you notice and see is they've been battle tested, and I don't know that you would probably say that from like for us, instance, we've been battle tested a little bit just because we didn't play well in the first half of games, and obviously the Indiana game being on the road was a battle test. These guys have been tested each and every week, and they're used to it in the sense that they've always get everybody's best because of who they are. But to see how they've won and what they've had to go through to win, I think tells you that they're a really good football team, a really good football program, and that's how you grow. So you can see them getting better and better, whether they had to come not from behind but score 31 points in the fourth quarter of last week's game. You just see a team and a program that plays well down the stretch as they get better, whether it's in a game or in a season. That's what you know you're in for a battle.
Is this that's a young team relative to what they were last year? Is this about week 5, week 6 when you start seeing young teams become a little bit more experienced?
You hope, as a coach, you hope. I think they might be accelerated because of, who they played and what situations which they played. They had an overtime game, which does nothing but helps you grow and fight through those things. They had to come back and went on kind of the last drive there in the Toledo game after not probably playing like they thought they should. And then last week on a battle in a neutral site on the road and scoring 31 points. That, to me, is where you see teams really kind of grow up and, maybe a little bit faster than what you would say as a young team. Maybe that week 5, week 6, week 7, that second half stretch is when you really kind of see those guys who are sophomores not be sophomores anymore, those guys who are freshmen not be freshmen anymore.
How do
This game feels so big to people outside of the program. I'm curious how it feels to people inside the program.
It's big. We're not going to lie to you, But like I said, once the thing's kicked off, you can't let all the emotions of all the different stuff that's going on affect you and how you go about things. And and what I mean by that is the emotions throughout the week that can drain you because you need to be at your best on Saturday. And that's where I struggle in a lot that I do is the emotions of the whole week of preparing. Then all of a sudden you get to Saturday and what energy and stuff do you have left? So there's kind of a good balance. I think even our 18 to 20, our kids do a better job of that because they're used to the emotional swings of everyday life, where some of us like to get into a routine and kind of stick with it. And then you get some of these ones that obviously are, it's a big game anytime you play Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's obviously a top 5 program, and it just happens to be a year where we're both really good and ranked high. But I think that more than anything is you got to go about the process of making sure you stay focused and not spending too much of your emotions, worried about all the other things that are going on because it's 2 top 10 teams.
Before the Georgia game, we talked about that kind of being a measuring stick game and playing against one of those top 10 programs. Do you feel like this is a chance to prove that, you guys are right there with them again?
Well, proving is one thing. I mean, that's, let the outside people that we like to prove things to ourselves too, but it is definitely a measuring stick where we said that, when you're playing Georgia, you're playing a top 10 program, you're playing Notre Dame, you're playing a top 5 program. I mean, there's nobody that's been historically, and I don't mean over 100 years, I mean in the last 5 years in the playoffs and things like that, one of the best teams in the country. So that to us is a big deal. But again, to the 18 to 22-year-olds, the here, the now, those kinds of things, aren't as much into their wheelhouse as, okay, what's important to these guys? This is an opportunity to go from 3-0 to 4-0. It's a very big game, control the emotions of things, but it is an ultimate measuring stick in all that we do. And so I think that's what's great for us as a program.
They've had to shuffle some quarterbacks due to injury. For this, you had last week off, but for this week specifically, does that change your preparation at all?
No, because you don't really know. I mean, I think that, you just got to prepare like you do and be able to adapt and adjust, based on whatever guy is really the healthiest and whichever guy they go with. I mean, they've got 2 or 3 different options in how they do things, and they've played 2 quarterbacks in every game anyway. So, for what it is that they do, that's a part of the prep and the part of the adjustments and once things all start to happen.
Freeman used to always speak so highly of you, having such a huge impact on his development as a coach, as a person. Will you guys set aside some time to go grab dinner or something, or is this like, man, I'll get to know you again in 5 days?
No. If I was coaching against my own father or my own brother, it would be just like it is. It's, those unique days, those Saturdays, there's only 12 guaranteed ones of a year, and, you go about them the same way, whether it's your brother you're coaching against, one of your former guys, one of your best friends, whatever that is, you respect the day, you respect the kids that have prepared for it, and you go about it that way. And there's plenty of time in the off seasons to be able to do things like that to me. I know it's different. I see some of the NFL things and see guys taking pictures after games and things, and I just kind of scratch my head. I don't understand it quite as much, but that's them. This is us, and it's kind of the way that I've always kind of gone about it, and I blame my upbringing for that.
Are the wife and kids the same way? Don't go over there. Don't talk to
No,
Marcus's
I don't.
wife and
They can
kids.
do what they want. It's not getting good for them. Obviously, there's different emotions. I've never been in that seat, so I don't mess with them and their routines and how they go about their business. And there's 75, 76, 77 guys with us that I hate to say it, I'm more concerned about than the routine of what the rest of the family does.
They spend a lot of time together at the Fickell
No, I
compound.
know that. I don't. That's why I stay out of their business.
You were pretty honest that you didn't like going to Ohio State a couple years ago just because of all the emotion and history that was tied up. Is this similar or is this different?
No, I think it's different. I think it's a lot different, just with history of things. But I think we're also in a different place. So, I think in a lot of those things, kind of, there are some similarities when you talk about top 5 programs and, challenges and the measuring sticks and things like that. But as far as some of those other things that, it doesn't pull at you nearly as much.
I think when you went to the Rose Bowl, you took the guys there on Friday to kind of get it out of the system. Similar
Yeah,
situation?
we'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll arrive on Friday, go over to the stadium. We're staying, 2-3 minutes away from the stadium. So we'll have an opportunity to go in there, kind of just walk around, get the lay of the land, let them get, see the thing and everything like that, take their pictures, whatever. Because it's the same thing. When you go over there on Saturday, you want them to be focused on the things that they got to do. It's already going to be difficult enough, to not have any of those other distractions. So try to get that out of the way, because, it's a big deal. And there's not a kid on this team that's played over there, other than obviously Michael Young. But for the most part, so there's some incredible history for us to be able to absorb and soak in.
Year 5, you've been to the Rose Bowl, Michigan Stadium, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Is that part of the plan, or is it just how it has played out?
I didn't really have a lot to do with the scheduling. It's nice that that's the way that things kind of work out, that you get an opportunity to kind of, be in those venues. This is a place I've never coached before. Had the good fortunes of playing there, but never have coached there. So, got to give a lot of credit to the people that actually did that for the program. But I can't just be in year 5. There wasn't a whole lot of asks to say, hey, there's an opportunity to play Ohio State or play Notre Dame or go to the Rose Bowl. Is this what you want to do? Maybe in the future that they will bring those up to you before they go ahead and sign the contracts, but I'm just glad that they've done a great job at making sure we can get our kids a lot of different exposures and a lot of different experiences in this, in what it is that they do. Because, yes, it is about playing, yes, it is about winning, but there's an experience behind this that does last a lifetime for these kids and us as coaches.
You mentioned playing at Notre Dame. If you see Ron Paulus, will you give him a...
Is he still with? I think he's still with them. So
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've seen him, but played against him.
Picked him, right?
A few years ago. I'm not sure what year that was.
5 or 6.
Maybe 5 and 6, but I don't remember back a lot of those things. So try to keep those things to myself.
Luke, do you think this is the biggest regular season game you've coached here so far, do you see?
Yeah, I might say so. I mean, when you say 2 top 10 teams, I don't think we've had a situation where we've been in this position yet. Where we've been, ranked in the top 10, and somebody we've played been ranked in the top 10. I'm not sure. Maybe the bowl game was that situation.
Georgia, yeah.
Nonetheless, I think that this is what you've always kind of dreamed of. This is what you want. This is what these guys have worked for: is to really, not just to play Notre Dame, because that's always a big deal, but to have the matchup where you're legitimately, two top 10 teams that a lot of people are excited about watching.
You know this team as well as anybody. How do you think your guys will react in a spot where it is two top 10 teams, it is a road team, it is Notre Dame, it is all the stuff that goes into it? How do you think this group will react?
Well, they did a great job at playing against Georgia. They reacted really well. It wasn't the situation wasn't overwhelming. The game wasn't overwhelming. There was no crowd, so I think sometimes that was a unique situation in the year. 2 weeks ago, we went to Indiana. I don't think we quite handled it as well as we should have, being an older team. But we had the poise enough to kind of come back and not let that overwhelm us. So hopefully we learned a lot from that situation. But I got the utmost confidence in these guys. Like I said, they've been through a lot of battles together. We've got some incredible leadership that not just have had a lot of successes, have had a lot of failures too. And I think that's when you really kind of look at teams that have grown up, the teams that have fought through failures. And, some of that really I'm talking about is in year one. But a lot of these guys that are still big parts of our program were here in that year one and really battled through a lot of failures that year.
How important is it to start big or start fast in a big game like this? I mean, just to get that emotion side out of it so that can't affect you,
It's always, it's always something to start fast and big, but I think that more than anything, we can't let the moment kind of overcome us in the beginning. And that's where sometimes the emotions of things might have been one of those things in Indiana where the emotions of things, when you run out there on that field, you're in a situation where it's obviously electric and things like that, and your emotions kind of go a little too high before you even kick the ball off, and then there's that lull. I don't know. I mean, that might have been a little bit a part of it. But we've got to be able to handle those things. We've got to be able to get ourselves into a rhythm, and we've got to know that there's going to be ups and downs, whether it starts fast or it starts slow. The reality is the best teams in college football aren't the ones that are winning games. I mean, you can look around college football. It's the teams that play the best. And I think there's a far cry from a really good team and a team that plays really good. And it has something to do with talent, but it doesn't have nearly as much to do with talent as it does playing together.
Because of how much familiarity is, do you try to do anything different or pull out something different?
Well, we always have some wrinkles. I mean, there's obviously we kind of prepared to even through the offseason about things that we would do, at least defensively, So, but those are the wrinkles of the games. Those are the kind of things you got to let the sea kind of fold out, and I mean, you don't also want to stray too far from what it is that you do. But nonetheless, it's nice when you've had some prep time to kind of look into it and get a better preparation for what what you believe is to come, because they're going to do some different things too.
You guys doing anything at practice to deal with the noise that's going to come with 100,000 people?
I don't. If you've been out to our practices, I think that it's usually pretty noisy. I'm not saying that means that we don't do stuff in order to get prepared for it, but everything we do is somewhat loud. So we'll do the same things. We'll do the same things. It's more so obviously for the offense. A lot of times the defense is out there and it's not nearly as loud because their offense is on the field. It's kind of a little bit different when you're at home. But those are all things that I think we'll be prepared for. I think we over prepared for them going into Indiana. It might have been one of those things too that kind of started us off a little too slow.
Having a chance to watch the Indiana film, what have you seen from Deshaun Pace? Obviously in that game, but also just early in the season, his development.
Well, I think he's got the natural knack to find the football. In that position in particular, that's what Jarrell White did so well for us. The other thing that's really good fortune too is to have two guys that's playing that position. So him and Ty being able to split kind of the reps. The unique thing that I think that Deshaun has done is if he's only taken 50% of the reps, he still is, even as a young kid, watching and understanding what's happening in the reps he's not in there, which is really kind of critical to me. Because it's hard when you're only playing half the reps to go in there and be able to react as fast to some things that are happening if it didn't happen to you. And that's where I think he's maturing beyond his years to say, okay, the times I'm not in, it's really a good opportunity to get your breath, but it's also an opportunity to study and make sure you realize what's happening when you're not in there. So it's not the first time you've seen it, maybe the second or third time they've run a play or been in that type of look or formation, but it's the first time you've been in there for that. So the ability to be able to do both, to be able to get a little bit of rest, but also stay locked into what you're seeing, gives him a chance to let his natural instincts play.
Is that something you can recruit, that, or is it just you find out when they get to
You don't see too many
campus?
kids that you're recruiting that aren't on the field.
True.
So I don't think that's a natural
But I just mean that
thing.
junkie, like,
Yeah, I mean, you try to look for those guys that truly, there's a lot of guys out there that like the game. You know, there's not as many guys that legitimately love the game of football. And yes, if you'd say, what is some of the qualities that that you can't see on film that you would really, really want to know about a kid? What really is your love and passion for the game? Because there's a lot more that goes into this game than I would say the average person probably realizes.
What makes a great corner? You got two really great ones, three if you add Arquan, others, but Kobe and Ahmad, they're two of the best in the college football. What makes a special cornerback?
Well, I think you gotta have, obviously you gotta have some confidence because you are on your own in a lot of situations. But I think the uniqueness of being calm enough, I think that's where, as you really look at Kobe growing from a young guy into a more mature corner, as competitive as he is, you got to change a little bit as a corner because you got to have a little bit of a different. I didn't say you don't be competitive, but there's situations where you got to know when and how. And the hard thing about a D lineman or a linebacker that if something gets beat or you miss a tackle, you get up, you get pissed, and you go back and you're going to hit somebody harder. The unique thing at that position is you got to be able to react. You got to be able to kind of take a couple deep breaths, not be over juiced by what just happened, and be able to have that poise to play the next play. And uniquely, obviously, they both are very talented, but I think that's one of those traits that gives them an opportunity to go from really good to great. Is Kobe's learned it, and I think Ahmad naturally has it.
I asked you before the Indiana game, just since there's not many drivable games for fans, just what was that like to see that number of fans there? And I'm sure it's going to be the same thing in Notre Dame.
It's exciting. I mean, I think it really means a lot to our guys. Like I said, in the midst of it, initially you don't recognize it, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't take in a lot of the sights. And my former guys and ex-coaches that tell me that's what they'll probably call it or remind me or text me, hey, make sure you take in the opportunity that you really have and enjoy it, look around at some point in time. And that doesn't happen until there's zeros on the clock for me. I don't know, I'm not very good at it, but at Indiana, that's when I finally recognized the crowd and the people that we had there that had traveled to support us, and hopefully we'll have that opportunity to recognize that when the clock runs 0-0 again.
Is there a coach you reached out to before this game? I think 2 years ago you told us you called Coach Tress before the UCF game. I just didn't know if there was anyone you reached out to.
No. I think the bye week gives you opportunity to obviously see and talk with some people, but I think that this is just another one of those things that you hope that you continue to grow your program, that there's a lot of these opportunities that, not that you're playing Notre Dame, obviously with the history of that, but that you're playing in these games where ranked opponents and there's a lot of energy and hype behind it. That it's just another opportunity for you to grow.
I know you have questions about rankings. Is it weird to not play a game and move up in the rankings?
Well,
If that
I'm
were
used
the
to going
case.
down, even though I don't look at them. That's normally what happens, but it's unique that all of a sudden you're playing Notre Dame and they move you up. I don't know. I mean, there are some things that they like matchups that are going to clarify themselves afterwards. But I didn't know I couldn't tell you where we were last week, and I really couldn't tell you I think we're in the top 10, but couldn't tell you exactly where we are.
you called it a
probably
top
not
10,
something I noticed.
you called it a top 10 matchup for 30 minutes.
Yeah, but
You're
there's
guessing?
somebody out there that doesn't have us ranked in the top 10, I'm sure, but I don't know who that is. We always promote the things that make us look the best, right? It's like before the year, there's like 17 different rankings. The one that we ever put out on social media is the ones that say the best that you are. So, I mean, let's be honest now. So I'm sure somebody out there, whether it's, I don't know, I don't want to give the New York Times top 25, maybe they don't have us up there, I don't know.
He works for Fox and he's from Tulsa. Don't worry about it. I've got it under control.
Detroit Free Press, maybe doesn't have us, I don't know.
Yeah, we attack a lot.
Is that the last question you got for the day?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thanks, Luke.